What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest stars sits down for what should be a friendly morning show interview, only to have the host push buttons that nobody saw coming? The tension in the Good Morning America studio became so thick you could cut it with a knife, and what started as promotional small talk quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in morning television history. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think about how this whole situation unfolded, because trust me, you're going to have opinions. So Dwayne Johnson walks onto the Good Morning America set with that signature smile, the one that's made him millions, the one that's gotten him through countless interviews over the years. He's there to talk about his latest project, shake some hands, share some laughs, and get out. Standard morning show stuff. George Stephanopoulos is sitting across from him, and everything seems normal at first. George starts off friendly enough. "Dwayne, great to have you here. You've got a lot going on right now, multiple projects in the works. But I want to start with something that's been making headlines." Dwayne's smile doesn't fade, but there's a slight shift in his posture. "Sure, what's on your mind?" George leans forward slightly. "There's been some talk about your punctuality on set, specifically regarding your latest film. Reports suggest you were late multiple times, which allegedly cost production significant money. What's your response to that?" The studio goes quiet. This isn't the softball question anyone expected. Dwayne's jaw tightens just a fraction. "Well, George, I think it's interesting that we're starting here instead of talking about the actual work. But okay, I'm a professional. I've been doing this for over 2 decades. Sometimes things happen, traffic, scheduling conflicts. But the idea that I'm just rolling in whenever I feel like it, that's not accurate." George doesn't back down, but the reports specifically mention instances where you were hours late, and in one case, didn't show up at all for a scheduled shoot. "That's not just traffic, is it?" Dwayne's smile is completely gone now. "George, I don't know where you're getting your information, but I'd be careful about presenting rumors as facts. I work harder than most people in this industry. When I commit to something, I'm all in. Have there been days where things didn't go exactly as planned? Sure. Does that make me unprofessional? Absolutely not." George pulls out a paper, and this is where things really start to escalate. "I have a statement here from an unnamed production assistant who worked on your film. They claim that the delays caused by your tardiness forced crew members to work extended hours, disrupting their schedules and family time. How do you respond to that?" Dwayne sits back in his chair, and you can see the shift happening in real time. His voice gets lower, more measured. "An unnamed source. That's convenient. George, do you know how many people work on a film set? Hundreds. Do you know how easy it is for someone with an agenda to say something anonymously? I've built my career on respect, on treating people right, on showing up and doing the work. So for you to sit here and present some anonymous claim as if it's gospel, that's disappointing." George presses on. "But you're not denying that there were delays." "I'm saying that filmmaking is complicated," Dwayne responds, his voice getting firmer. "There are a million moving parts. Weather delays, script changes, technical issues. Yes, there were delays on that production. Were all of them because of me? No. Were some of them related to scheduling adjustments that involved me? Possibly. But this narrative that I'm some diva who shows up whenever he wants, that's garbage, and I think you know it." The audience is dead silent. George shifts slightly in his seat, but maintains eye contact. "I'm just asking the questions that people want answers to, Dwayne. Your co-star on the film also made some comments in a recent interview about the challenges of the production schedule." Dwayne leans forward now, and his presence fills the screen. "Say their name, George. If we're going to talk about what people said, let's talk about who said it, and in what context. Because I can think of several co-stars who've had nothing but great things to say about working with me. So who are we talking about here?" George hesitates for just a moment. "I'd rather not put anyone on the spot." "But you're comfortable putting me on the spot," Dwayne shoots back. "With unnamed sources and vague references. That's not journalism, George. That's a hit piece disguised as an interview." The tension is absolutely palpable at this point. George tries to redirect. "Let's move on to another topic. There's been discussion about your political aspirations." You've been vocal about certain issues, and there's speculation that you might consider running for office. Is that something you're seriously considering? Dwayne shakes his head slightly, almost in disbelief. Are we really doing this? We're just jumping from one loaded topic to another? No warm-up, no actual conversation about the work I'm here to promote? George remains calm but firm. These are questions that your fans and the public have. You're one of the most influential figures in entertainment. Your potential political involvement is newsworthy. Dwayne takes a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. You want to talk about influence? Let's talk about responsibility. You're sitting here with a platform, with millions of people watching, and instead of having a real conversation, you're throwing grenades. That's the problem with media today. It's not about understanding or context anymore. It's about the gotcha moment, the clip that's going to go viral. George's expression hardens. I think that's unfair, Dwayne. I'm doing my job, which is to ask difficult questions. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe that says something. Uncomfortable? Dwayne's voice rises slightly. George, I've been uncomfortable plenty of times in my life. I've been broke. I've been told I wasn't good enough. I've failed publicly more times than most people fail privately. Uncomfortable doesn't scare me. What bothers me is the lack of integrity in how you're approaching this conversation. George doesn't flinch. So asking about documented reports of on-set behavior is a lack of integrity? Asking about your potential political plans when you yourself have spoken about political issues is unfair? It's the framing, George, Dwayne responds, leaning even further forward. You're not asking questions. You're making accusations and then asking me to defend myself. There's a difference. You want to ask me about my work? Great. You want to understand my perspective on leadership or social issues? I'm happy to have that conversation. But what you're doing right now, this ambush-style interview, that's not journalism. George sets his papers down deliberately. An ambush would mean you didn't know these topics might come up. You're a public figure, Dwayne. These are public discussions. You can't pick and choose what you want to address based on what makes you look good. I'm not trying to look good, Dwayne counters, his voice tight with frustration. I'm trying to have an honest conversation, but you're not interested in honesty. You're interested in conflict. You brought me here under the premise of discussing my work, my projects, the things I'm passionate about. Instead, you've spent the last several minutes trying to paint me as unreliable and evasive. George shifts tactics. Let's talk about your work ethic then. You've branded yourself as the hardest working person in entertainment. You post workout videos at 4 in the morning. You talk constantly about discipline and commitment. But if the reports about the production delays are true, doesn't that contradict the image you've sold to millions of people? Dwayne sits back, and there's something dangerous in his calm now. The image I've sold. That's an interesting way to put it. George, everything I've achieved, I've earned. Nobody handed me anything. I didn't come from privilege. I didn't have connections. What I have is because I outworked everyone around me. So when you sit there and question my work ethic based on anonymous claims from unnamed sources, yeah, I take that personally. But you're not addressing the substance of the claims, George presses. You're deflecting by talking about your background, your journey. That's great. Everyone respects your story. But that doesn't answer the question about whether you were professional on your most recent set. Dwayne's hands grip the armrests of his chair. I've addressed it. I told you that production delays happen for multiple reasons. I told you that the narrative being pushed isn't accurate. What more do you want? You want me to apologize for things I didn't do? You want me to validate false stories just to make your interview more dramatic? George remains steady. I want you to be accountable. If there were issues, own them. If there weren't, explain why multiple sources are saying there were. Multiple sources, Dwayne repeats, shaking his head. You keep saying that like it means something. I could find multiple sources to say just about anything about anybody. That doesn't make it true. And the fact that none of these sources are willing to put their names on their claims should tell you something about their credibility. The camera captures every micro-expression, every tense moment. George continues, Your production company released a statement after some of these reports came out, essentially dismissing them without providing specifics. Why not be transparent? Why not show receipts, as they say, if the claims are so baseless? Dwayne leans forward again, and his voice drops. Because I don't owe the internet an itemized breakdown of my daily schedule to prove that I'm professional. Because responding to every anonymous accusation legitimizes them. Because some things aren't anyone's business. I work with my team, I communicate with my collaborators, and we get the job done. The people who matter, the people who actually work with me, know the truth. That should be enough. George won't let up. But you're a public figure who profits from public support. Don't you think the public deserves transparency when questions about your professionalism arise? The public deserves quality work, Dwayne fires back. They deserve entertainment, projects that they can enjoy with their families, stories that inspire them. They don't deserve a microscope on every single moment of the production process. And frankly, George, I'm starting to question why you're so invested in tearing me down this morning. What's the agenda here? George's eyebrows raise. There's no agenda, Dwayne. I'm asking questions. No, Dwayne interrupts, his voice firm. You're building a narrative. There's a difference. Every question you've asked has been designed to put me on the defensive, to make me look bad. That's not curiosity, that's calculation. George maintains his composure, but there's a steeliness in his voice now. If you feel attacked, Dwayne, maybe that's because you're not used to being challenged. You've built a career on being likable, on being the guy everyone roots for. But that doesn't mean you're above scrutiny. Dwayne's jaw clenches. I've been scrutinized my entire career. I've been criticized, doubted, written off more times than I can count. The difference is, most of that criticism came with names attached, with specific examples, with actual accountability. What you're doing here is hiding behind vague allegations and pretending it's hard-hitting journalism. George leans back slightly. So you're saying every single report about the production issues is fabricated? Every anonymous crew member who spoke out is lying? I'm saying that context matters, Dwayne responds, his voice steady but intense. I'm saying that on any production, there are people who are going to be unhappy about something. Schedules change. Creative decisions get made that not everyone agrees with. Personalities clash. That's the reality of this business. But to take isolated complaints from people who won't even identify themselves and turn them into this story about me being some unprofessional nightmare to work with, that's irresponsible. George shifts in his seat. Let's talk about something else then. Your business ventures have expanded significantly. You've got partnerships, endorsements, your own production company. Some critics have said you've spread yourself too thin, that you're more focused on building your brand than on the quality of your actual work. What do you say to that? Dwayne lets out a short, humorless laugh. Wow. Okay, so now we're questioning the quality of my work. George, my films have made billions of dollars. Billions. My shows are watched by millions of people globally. My business ventures are successful because I put the same energy into them that I put into everything else. But sure, let's pretend that I'm just phoning it in, cashing checks, not caring about quality. I didn't say you don't care, George clarifies. I'm asking if it's possible that taking on so much has affected your ability to give each project the attention it deserves. Dwayne's eyes narrow. And I'm telling you that I don't do anything halfway. Every project I take on gets everything I have. If that means I'm working 20-hour days, so be it. If that means I'm on conference calls at midnight and back on set at 5 in the morning, that's what I do. So this idea that I'm stretched too thin, that I'm not focused, that's just another way of saying I should be doing less, accomplishing less, being less. And I'm not interested in that. George presses forward. But doesn't that intensity, that refusal to slow down, potentially contribute to the issues we discussed earlier? The scheduling conflicts, the reported tension on sets. Dwayne's voice rises. You're twisting everything I say. I just told you that I give everything to my projects, and you're using that to circle back to the same baseless accusations. This is exactly what I'm talking about. No matter what I say, you've already decided what the story is going to be. George remains calm but firm. I'm following the logic of your own statements, Dwayne. You admit to working extremely long hours across multiple projects. It's not unreasonable to question whether that workload creates challenges. Everyone in this industry works long hours, Dwayne counters. Everyone juggles multiple commitments. But I notice you're not interviewing other actors about their schedules, their time management, their professionalism. Why is that? Why am I the one being put under this microscope? George pauses for just a moment. Perhaps because you've positioned yourself as the example. You're the one who constantly talks about outworking everyone, about being the hardest worker in the room. When you set that standard, people are going to examine whether you live up to it. Dwayne's response comes quick and sharp. And I do live up to it. Every single day. But what you're doing isn't examining, it's prosecuting. You came into this interview with a verdict already in mind, and now you're just looking for ways to justify it. The tension in the studio is suffocating at this point. George continues, "You've also been vocal about authenticity, about being real with your fans. But some people feel that your social media presence is carefully curated, that the person you present online isn't the full picture. How do you respond to accusations of being inauthentic?" Dwayne throws his hands up slightly. Inauthentic. Now I'm inauthentic. George, what do you want from me? You want me to post videos of my bad days? You want me to share every frustration, every moment of doubt, every private struggle? I share what I'm comfortable sharing. I share positivity because I believe in it, because I know people are dealing with their own challenges, and maybe seeing someone work toward their goals helps them with theirs. But that doesn't mean I'm fake. George doesn't back down. But there's a difference between being positive and being honest. You've faced criticism before, you've had public controversies, yet your social media rarely acknowledges any of that. It's all success, all motivation, all winning. Doesn't that create an unrealistic image? Dwayne's voice gets quieter, more intense. You know what's unrealistic? Expecting someone to perform their struggles for public consumption. I deal with my issues privately, with my family, with my friends, with professionals when needed. I don't owe anyone a front row seat to my lowest moments. And frankly, the fact that you're sitting here criticizing me for trying to be a positive influence, that tells me everything I need to know about where this interview was headed from the start. George shifts the conversation again. Let's talk about your relationship with the media. You've had a mostly positive relationship with press over the years, but recently there seems to be more friction. Do you think your sensitivity to criticism has increased as your fame has grown? Dwayne stares at George for a long moment. Sensitivity to criticism. That's an interesting way to frame it. I'm not sensitive to criticism, George. I'm sensitive to dishonesty. I'm sensitive to agendas. I'm sensitive to people using their platforms to tear others down, instead of having genuine conversations. And right now, that's exactly what this feels like. George's expression hardens further. So anyone who asks you tough questions has an agenda? That's a convenient way to dismiss legitimate scrutiny, Dwayne. Journalists have a responsibility to ask difficult questions, especially of powerful figures. You don't get to decide what's legitimate based on whether you like the questions. Dwayne leans forward, his voice low and controlled. And journalists have a responsibility to be fair, to present facts instead of innuendo, to actually listen to the answers they're given instead of just waiting for their next attack. You haven't done any of that today. Every single thing you've asked has been framed to make me look bad, to create controversy where there isn't any. George doesn't blink. Or maybe there is controversy and you're just not comfortable addressing it. You've built an empire on your image, and when that image gets questioned, you react defensively. That's human, but don't pretend it's about journalistic integrity. Don't lecture me about what's human, Dwayne fires back, his voice rising again. I've been nothing but human my entire career. I've made mistakes. I've learned from them. I've grown. But what you're doing here isn't about my humanity. It's about creating a spectacle. You want the headline, you want the moment where I lose my cool, where I say something I'll regret. That's what this whole thing has been building toward. George remains unnervingly calm. If you feel that I'm being unfair, you're welcome to walk away. No one is forcing you to stay in this chair. The challenge hangs in the air. Dwayne's jaw works for a moment before he responds. That's what you want, isn't it? You want me to walk out so you can say I couldn't handle the heat, that I ran away from tough questions. Well, I'm not giving you that satisfaction. I'm going to sit right here and tell you exactly what I think about this ambush you've disguised as an interview. George's voice stays measured. Then tell me this. With all your success, all your accomplishments, why does criticism bother you so much? Why can't you just let it roll off your back? Dwayne shakes his head slowly. It's not about letting criticism roll off my back. I've had plenty of criticism over the years, and most of it I can handle just fine. What I can't handle is sitting across from someone who's supposed to be a professional, who's supposed to have standards, and watching them use their platform to spread rumors and half-truths. That's not criticism, George. That's character assassination. George sits up straighter. Those are strong words. I've cited reports. I've mentioned public discussions. If you think that's character assassination, maybe you need thicker skin for the position you've put yourself in. Thicker skin, Dwayne repeats, his voice dripping with frustration. I've got plenty of thick skin. What I don't have patience for is hypocrisy. You want to talk about accountability? Let's talk about your accountability. Where's your accountability for the questions you ask, for the way you frame things, for the damage that can be done when someone with your reach decides to go after someone? George's composure cracks slightly, his voice getting sharper. I'm not going after anyone. I'm doing my job. If you can't distinguish between legitimate questioning and a personal attack, that's on you, not me. Dwayne stands up slightly, then sits back down, clearly trying to contain himself. You know what, George? I came here this morning thinking we were going to have a real conversation. I thought we'd talk about my work, about the projects I'm passionate about the things I'm trying to build. Instead, you've spent this entire time trying to tear me down. And the worst part is, you're acting like you're doing everyone a favor, like you're some champion of truth just asking the hard questions. George's voice is cold now. If the truth makes you uncomfortable, that's not my problem. My job is to inform the public, not to make guests feel good about themselves. Inform the public, Dwayne scoffs. You're not informing anyone. You're creating drama, manufacturing controversy, feeding the outrage machine. And you know what's sad? You're good enough at what you do that you don't need to resort to this. You could have a real conversation. You could actually dig into substance, but instead you chose this. The silence between them is deafening. George finally speaks, his tone clipped. We're running short on time. Is there anything you actually want to promote, or are we done here? Dwayne's laugh is bitter. Now you want to let me promote something. After spending the entire interview attacking me, now you're offering me a crumb. You know what? No, I don't want to promote anything to an audience that just watched you try to destroy my reputation for ratings. I came here in good faith, and you violated that. So we're done. George's expression is unreadable. So you are walking out. I'm not walking out, Dwayne says, standing up now. I'm choosing not to participate in whatever this has been. There's a difference. I sat here. I answered your questions. I defended myself against accusations that had no basis. I did my part. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this was a normal interview, like what you did here was okay. George stands as well. For someone who claims to value honesty, you seem very uncomfortable when that honesty is directed at you. Dwayne's voice is steel. That wasn't honesty, George. That was a hit job. And I think deep down, you know it. I think you know exactly what you were doing here, and I think you're going to go back and watch this interview and feel real proud of yourself for landing your punches. But I want you to remember something. I've been counted out before. I've been written off before. I've had people try to tear me down before. And I'm still here. I'm still standing. Whatever you think you accomplished here today, it's not going to change that. George's jaw tightens. I wasn't trying to accomplish anything except getting answers to questions that people have. Then mission failed, Dwayne responds, his voice final. Because all you did was show everyone watching that. When given the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation with someone, you chose conflict over connection, controversy over clarity. That says a lot more about you than it does about me. The camera captures the moment as Dwayne removes his microphone, the metallic click echoing in the silent studio. George remains standing, his expression stony. The producers are clearly scrambling off camera, but neither man breaks eye contact. Dwayne's final words are quiet but carry weight. "I hope this was worth it for you." And with that, he walks off the set, leaving George standing alone, the uncomfortable silence filling the studio as the show cuts to a bewildered commercial break. So there you have it, one of the most intense confrontations in morning television history. The question now is, who was in the right here? Was George just doing his job as a journalist, asking the tough questions that needed to be asked? Or did he cross a line, turning what should have been a promotional interview into an interrogation? Make sure you subscribe to stay updated on how this situation develops, and drop a comment below. Do you think Dwayne Johnson was justified in his reaction, or did he overreact to legitimate questions?